Hi, welcome back to the channel. We're going to continue on with our discussion of the Enneagram, moving through all the different types. Now we're going to begin with type 6, which is the Loyalist. And as the name suggests, the Loyalists are about loyalty, particularly loyalty to people and beliefs as well. They believe that the most important aspect of life is being loyal to others. They can be very, in that sense, they can be very tradition bound. They find certain things they know and trust, and they put basically all of their faith into that. They hang on to relationships far longer than anyone else, maybe to the point of even being unhealthy. I think some enablers are loyalists. When we talk about enablers, these are people who enable an addict to continue doing what they're doing. And I think sometimes the loyalists do that out of a sense of loyalty. This is someone that they feel that they have a kinship to, that they owe something to, and so therefore they put up with a lot of the bad behavior of the addict, and this allows the addict to keep being an addict without suffering too many consequences. They will fight for others before they fight for themselves a lot of times. They are much more interested in fighting the good fight for other people. Like I said, they seem to externalize a lot of their needs. And what that is they really deep down have a belief that they can't go it alone, that they can't exist in this world alone, that they have a lot of self-doubt, rather low self-esteem in that sense. They just don't believe that they can just stand on their own 2 feet. And so what they end up doing is putting a lot of their faith into something else or someone else. They want this leader to tell them what they do. They want some rules to follow. They want some way to know, external of themselves, that if you just do this, if you just follow this person, or you just follow these ideas or follow these rules, then everything will be okay. And that's really one of the things that they're seeking in life. So they're the types that'll basically just say, well, that's the rules. Doesn't matter if it makes sense, doesn't matter if it's really even helpful. It's just, well, it's the rules. It's what you do. As I'm recording this, we're still in the COVID pandemic, and to be honest, a lot of the rules just don't make sense. Like I live in Austin. If I want to go eat in a restaurant, I have to wear a mask over my face to enter the restaurant. But as soon as I sit down and start eating, I can take my mask off. That doesn't make any sense. Why wear a mask at all? I mean, does COVID not spread while I'm chewing? No. But to type 6s, to loyalists, they're like, well, that's just the rules. Just follow it. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. That's their logic. As I'm recording this, also, there's sort of a meme going around. I don't know how long it'll last, but because it's memes, they don't last very long. But the whole notion of like Karens, the Corona Karens. Karens are they like to describe them as usually middle-aged women with like this kind of blonde, short haircut, and they always want to speak to the manager kind of thing. Those are type 6s. They have demands. There's rules that need to be followed. There's an order that needs to be put in place. And if you're not going to go along with that, then they need to speak to someone in charge so they can get you in trouble. That's the kind of loyalist. And so they, like all the types, they can be wonderful and they can be horrible. It all depends on where they are on that healthiness scale. Having a loyal friend is actually a great thing. Having someone who you know has got your back, who will come and help you when you need it, that's a great thing. Having someone who's willing to blindly follow rules no matter what, that can be a scary thing. That's how a lot of dictatorships have happened. And so because of that, type 6s, they can make for some interesting characters. They can be easily the hero. They can also be kind of the villain. They're usually not the villain that's in charge, though. So this isn't the evil mastermind. This is the person who follows the evil mastermind. This is the good and loyal knight who follows the evil king because, well, he's the king, and that's what you do. I'm sure there's some characters from Game of Thrones that are like that, where they just follow them, no matter what. Ned Stark might actually qualify in that. I have to think about that one. But yeah, so that's kind of where they come from. They are filled with a lot of anxiety and self-doubt, and they use these external structures, these external people, that can help them get through life. The problem is when those things fall apart, so do they. When there's no rules to follow, they don't know what to do, and they will just sort of shut down or go into a blind panic and just start making up their own rules, and none of it makes sense. When their leader who tells them what to do all the time is gone, then they don't know what to do. They usually just gravitate towards a new leader. Or we saw this a little bit like with the televangelists back in the 80s. I believe it was Jimmy Swaggart. You know, big televangelist, the sort of fire and brimstone televangelist. I think he's from Louisiana. Um, well, he got caught, messing around with a prostitute, and all of a sudden he wasn't as holier than thou as a lot of people thought. And a lot of people in his congregation just sort of like ignored it. They just sort of excused it. Because to accept that their leader wasn't perfect meant that they were following the wrong leader, which meant maybe they had to go find another leader, or maybe no leader at all. And to a type 6, that is not good. They are not interested in doing that. So they'd much rather just ignore the flaws of their own leaders. I guess in that sense, type 6s are the types that would join cults. Because even when you really find out that the cult leader is a bad dude, they'll just keep making excuses for him because they just want to follow along. Their basic fear is being abandoned and left without any support or guidance. And their basic desire is security and support. They just don't want to be left alone. They want someone to tell them what to do, and they kind of want to be led by the best person out there. Unfortunately, who knows who that might be. From my experience, when it comes to type 6s, they are usually, when we talk about substance abuse, because remember, one of the things I like to talk about is the substance abuse that might affect the various types, and this is just kind of based upon my impression from working with clients. Type 6s, if they abuse a substance, it's usually alcohol. Usually because alcohol is legal, and type 6s don't want to break the law, so they're not going to use an illegal substance. And so if you want to go with legal substances, at least especially in the state of Texas, your options are alcohol, caffeine, or nicotine. In some states, cannabis is becoming a legal substance as well. And maybe if we saw cannabis legalized in Texas, I might see more of that. But nicotine and caffeine are stimulants. They don't want stimulants. They need to calm down. They're riddled with anxiety, riddled with self-doubt, and they just need to kind of bring down that energy. And so alcohol is about the only way they can do it. So a lot of them tend to have a lot of problems with drinking because they use alcohol to manage their anxiety. So going through the healthy stages, or the stages of health, I guess, going from extreme to unhealthy, average, and healthy. At the extreme levels, type 6s have panic disorder. They have panic attacks. They can't manage their anxiety. And because they have such little belief in their own abilities to take care of themselves, they usually need someone else to help them manage their anxiety. So, now that I mentioned that, probably benzodiazepines or something else that they probably abuse quite a bit, because they're also a downer. So they'd be like Xanax, Ativan, Klonopin, and so that would probably be the other one that they would use. But yeah, they would want someone else to help bring them down. They need their meds. They need to talk to somebody. They would need that sort of thing. They can also have like borderline personality disorder. I don't know how common that one is. Mainly, I think with borderlines, I think of some of the other types, more like type 2s. But definitely their inability to, or their desperate need to have someone else to tell them what to do, then that blurs the boundaries after a while between the leader and the follower. Again, this is sort of like cult leaders type things. And then, of course, they can also become paranoid. They can believe that the world is an inherently unsafe place and everyone is out to get them, and they just need some kind of system in place to keep them in check. I guess it'd be a little bit of OCD as well. Hard to tell. But yeah, at the extreme levels, type 6s can be very, very unhappy people. And they don't believe that they can necessarily take care of themselves, so they need someone else to help them get through that. And maybe they can't always find that person. When, at the unhealthy level, though, they have a lot of guilt and self-hatred over mistakes because they believe that they're supposed to be following rules all the time, and when they don't follow the rules, when they let someone down, especially someone that they feel like they really owe something to, then they beat themselves up about this for a long, long time. They're the ones who will over apologize at the unhealthy level. They'll over apologize for the most minor mistakes. And to a lot of other people, they make themselves kind of annoying in that sense. Um, they also might use suicide as a cry for help. They don't necessarily want to die, but they want someone to come and save them. And so they're the types that will take a bunch of pills, down it with some alcohol, and then immediately call a friend and tell them exactly what they did, knowing, even on a subconscious level, knowing that that person is probably going to call 911, they're going to get saved, and they're going to be fine. Or they might cut themselves, but not really in such a way that they're going to actually bleed to death, and then they cut themselves, they immediately go, oh, look what I did. And so they can be kind of looking for cries for help. Again, what there was, that external person to come into their life and tell them, no, everything's going to be okay, here's what you should do, this is what you need to do, that sort of sense. Again, they can have a lot of panic attacks. They can be obsessively fearful, just constantly worried about things, and then they're the ones who need that sort of structure to make everything all right. And that's at the unhealthy level. At the average level, they can be very uneasy about investing in people. They know that they need people, but they also know that people aren't really perfect, and so they can have very sort of tenuous relationships with people. They're constantly seeking reassurance, not to the crazy level of like trying to hurt themselves and getting attention, but they're the ones like they're the employee who's always going to their boss wanting to know if they're doing okay, if they did a good job. They need that email validation from their supervisor saying, big thumbs up, good. If they don't get that, they just assume things must be bad. They don't ever assume no news is good news. They assume no news is really bad news and that sort of thing. And so they will kind of obsess in their head about how they may have made a mistake, what they did wrong. And of course then there's the fears of like getting fired because they can build that up in their head of being rejected and oh my god, if I lose my job, what will happen? And so at the very average level, they can constantly be seeking very reassurances. The other flip side of that though is that they can become very cynical and distrustful when they are abandoned, when they are cheated or whatever. I think one of the reasons why is because they know that they need people. They know that they need this system and structure. That's the only thing that's going to make them feel better. And when they can't count on that, then they have to wonder, well, what can I count on? Because remember, their inclination is not to count on themselves. So that's not even up for a discussion. So then they just become very cynical about other people and that sort of stuff. This is the sort of people who, going back to the Jimmy Swaggart, some of those other sixes probably would have seen that Jimmy Swaggart was supposed to be holier than thou. Turns out he likes to mess around with prostitutes. And so some others would say, well, then Christianity just sucks. Organized religion just sucks. All televangelists just suck. They'll go to the exact other end of the extreme because now they just distrust everybody. Instead of just saying, you know what, maybe it's just that one guy. Maybe just he's a human being and he's going to be flawed and you shouldn't put people on a pedestal. That's a little nuanced. And for an average, healthy, average level of a 6, I may not be ready to go there for that. When they get to healthy level, then they can. They start to discover their own inner guidance. They start becoming happier with, yeah, I can take care of things on my own to some degree. Maybe life is better with other people. Maybe life is better and more orderly if we all follow the rules. But if it doesn't work out, I know I can take care of that myself. They start to feel that inner guidance. They start becoming very grounded and trusting and engaging with other people. They form true alliances with other people. Alliances that are not based upon fear they are coercion. They're based upon a mutual understanding and mutual need and aid and that sort of thing. It becomes a much more logical alliance as opposed to some sort of fear-based got to do it or else the world will fall apart kind of alliance. So looking at the some examples, one of the things I thought was interesting is and I put this in here, is that someone said Alex Jones is a type 6. Oh, I had to think about that. Um, he definitely believes in the sort of, there should be an order to the world. And but a lot of what he talks about is the way the world doesn't work in that sense. The elites are going to get us interdimensional demons living off of our fears or whatever else. I'm not really sure. I kind of wonder whoever listed this one was playing up. Maybe he's kind of paranoid or something, but it's hard to tell. I think something I did forget to mention. Type sixes are the most common type of them all. I think something like half of all people are type sixes, over half. And I think the reason why is because society needs rule followers. Once you reach like a certain level of society, certainly at a city level, it doesn't work if everybody's just doing their own thing. You need to have a certain set of laws and rules and codes and social norms that everybody kind of agrees on for that many people to get along without just devolving into chaos where everybody just does whatever they want. I think once you get to smaller societies, maybe small villages, certainly like the hunter-gatherer tribes of early humans, you can kind of get away with that. They don't really have a lot of rules. Don't really need it. Everybody's just kind of related to each other. It's all about mutual survival, and that one's where you easily do the do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, and everything else will just work out. Once you get to bigger cities, then you have to start working out bigger rules, and societies that have a lot of sixes probably tend to do well. We also know that from military. The more organized and disciplined a military force is, the more likely it's going to be successful in battle. And so what you need is a bunch of rule followers to be the ones who fight the wars and that sort of thing. So I think that's one of the reasons why type sixes are probably so common compared to other types. But anyway, I digress. Back to the examples. J. Edgar Hoover, the first FBI director. He's the FBI director for like 50 years or something ridiculous like that. Yeah, of course he wants rules and systems and that sort of thing. Michael Moore, the film director, maybe, I don't know. Again, he's the type who pushes back on systems that don't seem to work. But that's not always what type sixes do. So we'll see about that. The fictional examples, which I think is much more accurate, is Bilbo Baggins was one. Definitely a 6. He likes his routines. He likes to stay home. He likes his handkerchief and his pipe and having his morning breakfast or second breakfast or whatever. Is not interested in adventures because that's just kind of outside the norm. But then he also becomes a very loyal friend. And that's throughout the entire Hobbit and really even into the beginning of Lord of the Rings. He's all about being loyal friends long after there was any need for that. But he still, like, I think it kind of mentions in the Fellowship of the Ring that some of the dwarves would still drop by just to visit Bilbo, and so he was still maintaining these friendships decades after necessary. Carrie White from the novel Carrie, she's also type 6, going back to the heavy-duty Christian view, but hers is, like, of course, at the very crazy end of, very extreme fundamentalist, but, she's, 16, I think, when the book happens, and she's still following all of her mom's rules, and really most of that book is about her learning that her mother's rules and the rules of society really just kind of are bullshit, but at the same time she's also being abused by all these other people, and she's developing telekinetic powers. Eventually she snaps because she realizes she can't trust anybody. Her mother, of course, is crazy, and in the end tries to kill her. Spoiler alert. The kids at the school mock her. She even thinks that some of the kids intentionally set her up. And so by the end of the book, she doesn't trust anybody. And now she's just mad. And so that's where the horror in the horror movie kind of comes in. But Carrie White's a very good example of a 6. And the narrator from the Fight Club. That's what most of that movie is about. The book not quite as much, but it's still definitely there. But yeah, definitely if you see the movie, The Fight Club, the narrator. This is not Tyler Durden. This is the guy who we never know his name. He just talks about from himself from the I perspective. The oh no, I can't remember his name. But anyway, he's the one who's all about following the rules. What kind of coffee table best represents me as a human being? He pays his taxes. He does all the things that are right in society that he's supposed to do. That's very much a type 6. And then Tyler Durden comes along, who is a very much of a different type. I think we talked about him in an earlier video. And he just pushes against all of that. And then, of course, the question is, who's really in charge? Is it the type 6 narrator, or is it the Tyler Durden character who's kind of crazy? So type 6s can be very interesting as far as characters for writing, because you can start them off kind of like the Carrie White character, who is sort of stuck. She believes she has to follow these rules. She believes she has to be this sort of person. She believes she has to trust certain people, maybe to the exclusion of all others. And then over the course of the story, she starts to realize that none of that matters. And I think how that story ends depends on how she's a hero or a villain. Because really that's the difference between Carrie, the horror story, which is how the book actually is, versus like Carrie, the feel-good novel. Because if at the end she became a healthy 6, she probably wouldn't have killed everybody. She might have like used her powers to, like, I don't know, embarrass them or something, or recognize her own power within. To hell with all you people, I don't need you, that sort of thing. I want to run away from home and be a superhero or something. I don't know. But yeah, that's a very good character arc for 6s, is being kind of trapped in a system, in a place. Think of like someone who maybe is stuck in a cult, who wants to get out, or starts to realize they want to get out. A lot of dystopian science fiction novels start off this way. I believe Brave New World is like this. The character is a type 6 and believes in the rules and following the rules, and then after a while learns the rules aren't so great. Logan's Run, the movie, that's another good one. Sandman, he is a law enforcement officer. He's there to enforce the rules of society, and then after a while he learns that society, it's not as good as it should be. Things aren't how they seem, and so he starts to become much more independent. But anyway, I hope that you found this helpful, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.